Happy birthday to my man Bam Adebayo from the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo has had quite the interesting summer. He's had a few podcasts where he's had to go on and name his frustrations with the NBA that he has not been voted as a Defensive Player of the Year yet, though being first team All Defense, second team All Defense for quite some time now, and anchoring one of the better defensive teams in the NBA for the past 4, 5, 6 seasons, pretty much since he's been a starter. And he's also with Team USA, sporting his newfound NBA range jump shot that looks silky smooth. And on top of that, his Miami Heat actually drafted a center in Khalil Ware. I want to dive into all of that. But before we do, this video is being brought to you by Bridges and Stones Family and Relationship Care. If you or someone you know is in need of support with their mental health or relationship, go to bridgesandstones.com for a free consultation today. One small act today can create a better tomorrow. I have said for a while that Bam Adebayo is one of those players who really gets overlooked because a lot of what he does is not things that show up in a stat sheet. And that is not to discount what does show up in the stat sheet. Strong rebounding numbers, rim protection, ability to switch on defense on the guards, wings, centers. He anchors your defense, great leadership. He stays healthy. He's reliable. He is a consistent player, doesn't just show you flashes, right? He's someone who is dedicated to his craft, stays in great shape. He has a great work ethic. He's always getting better. And yet, that only is the beginning of just how valuable he is for this Miami Heat franchise. To be able to anchor a defense, what you have to do is you have to have a level of intentionality, commitment, and focus night in and night out to not only know your teammates, their strengths and weaknesses, the scheme that your coach comes up with, and Eric Spoelstra is no lack as a coach, which means that these schemes are quite complex. And when you're a 6'9" center at about 245, 250 pounds, right? How you have to play on the court is very different than how most other centers who might be 6'11", 260 pounds, 270 pounds, Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo or Brook Lopez, Jarrett Allen, like these guys who have substantial height and length can afford to play a different type of style than Bam Adebayo can. Bam Adebayo has a 7-foot wingspan, maybe 7'1" at 6'9", which means that his ability to challenge shots at the rim come mostly from his timing and footwork and his defensive instincts rather than having length. And it's not to discount the timing and instincts that it takes even when you have length, but it's to say that having 4, 5, or 6 more inches in your wingspan and 2 to 4 more inches in your height, like a Brook Lopez at 7'1", 7'2", with a 7'7" wingspan, right? Your timing has to be impeccable because you still have to defend against the lob behind you. You still have to defend against the pull-up jump shot, right? You still have to defend guys that are bigger than you. And yet somehow Bam Adebayo gets the job done year in and year out. Ever since the Miami Heat moved on from Hassan Whiteside, Bam Adebayo has been the anchor. And it's very interesting. There was a quote early on when he was drafted. He said, look, I'm not Dwight Howard. I don't want to be Dwight Howard. But I'm going to be honest with you. That's how they've kind of played him. A Dwight Howard that does a little bit more facilitating, not as offensively focused, but still as a defensive anchor. And I've been saying for years, since they made the run to the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers, that Bam Adebayo must expand his game to the 3-point line if the Miami Heat are to be successful in trying to win a championship with Bam Adebayo as their primary big. Because at 6'9", you cannot ask him to be a big man on the offensive end when he has to go up against considerable size, when he has to go up against 6'10" Anthony Davis, 6'11" Dwight Howard, right? 6'9" LeBron James, right? He can't be expected to be a great finisher around the rim with a 6'11" Nikola Jokic, a 6'11" DeAndre Jordan off the bench, 6'10" Michael Porter Jr., 6'9" Aaron Gordon. Like he becomes quickly outmatched. And it's not to say that he's not still effective. And that's a part of just how talented he is. That in spite of his lack of size, he has mastered his craft. And I understand his frustration with not quite being recognized for just how tremendous of a job he has done at his size. When you look at guys like Draymond Green, look at guys like Ben Wallace, right? They have both been recognized for what they've done and contributed to winning, even if he has not gotten a championship yet. He has been able to get to the NBA Finals, which is a feat in itself. And even though he's fallen to Hall of Fame great players, right, MVP type players, it does not negate the talent and the impact that he's had. But at the same time, you also have to acknowledge that just because you have been a great defender, it doesn't mean other people haven't been great defenders. And I think that that's where he's kind of found himself, in that he hasn't quite been acknowledged to the degree that he desires to, and yet he hasn't necessarily set himself apart. But I think this year is going to be a year that everyone's going to be paying attention to him. There's something about when you stick your neck out for yourself and you bet on yourself and you claim it and you say, this is what I'm wanting, and you back it up, you tend to get it. You tend to get it. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's Defensive Player of the Year this coming season. But the next thing that I have to point out is he's sporting this newfound jump shot. And this thing looks beautiful. This thing, I mean, he's knocking it down and with Team USA, with shooters like Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And all of a sudden he's stepping out like, yeah, I can knock this down too. I can knock down this shot too. And I think it's a shot that he's been able to knock down probably for the past 3-4 seasons. He just hasn't had the confidence to use it in games. And I know Eric Spoelstra has asked him to, but it's hard to tell a guy who does so many things to do even more. And yet, he's finally stepping into that. And with the descent of a Jimmy Butler, even though I think he's going to have a good year and a contract year, we can see that Jimmy Butler is declining, and this team is slowly being handed over to Bam Adebayo. And in doing so, they have actually brought in a center to finally back him up. They drafted out of the University of Indiana, Kalel Ware, who has probably some of the most potential for a big in this draft. He is an extremely fluid athlete, great height, length, timing, touch around the rim. He shows a expanding skill set that you can see continue to expand in a similar way that Bam Adebayo's has. But his ability to be an energetic big, there's a potential that he can have the type of impact that a Derek Lively III was able to have for the Dallas Mavericks. That all of a sudden now he gives you an additional big man center that can cause problems for another team that also has big men. People have to understand that the NBA is getting bigger, not just like stronger, more height on the wings or the point guard position. We got 6'7" point guards with a LaMelo Ball and 6'5" point guards. It seems to be the norm, right? Josh Giddey is a 6'8" point guard, right? Luka Doncic is a 6'7" point guard, right? We have guys on the wing at 6'9" and 6'10", right? Jalen McDaniels and of course Kevin Durant and Paul George at 6'9" and Jason Tatum at 6'8", 6'9", and LeBron James, right? You have a lot of size on the wings, but now at the center position, which has shifted again, now everybody has size on the interior. You have the Joel Embiids at 7'2". You have the Brook Lopez at 7'2". You have the Nikola Jokic at 6'11", right? Now you also have the DeAndre Ayton at 7'1". You have other centers, Kristaps Porzingis at 7'3". You have size, considerable size at the big position. And the Miami Heat, it's taken them long enough, from my opinion, because I've been a little bit frustrated with this, that they finally recognize they need to get him help. They drafted Nikola Jovic at 6'10", who's able to shoot the ball and space things out for Bam Adebayo to play on the interior. And then now you have Kel'el Ware, another young, athletic big man who shows the body type to be able to put on size as well, because he looks already considerably bigger than he did at the University of Indiana. And he's having quite the dominant summer league performance. Now you have guys like Jaime Jaquez, who is kind of like that do-it-all Swiss Army knife wing that Jimmy Butler many times plays that role throughout the regular season before he goes supernova or playoff Jimmy in the playoffs, right? And then they brought in guys like Terry Rozier, right? A spark plug offensive player who can get to the rim consistently, create his own shot on top of shooters like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, this team is finally seeming to be built around Bam, who's been a multiple time All Star and who I think has the opportunity this upcoming year to really step into that seat of this is your team. This is your time. This is your chance to set yourself apart and to really solidify your career. Because I personally believe that Bam Adebayo is already a Hall of Fame player. To get your team to the NBA Finals twice, to be a multiple time All Star, multiple time NBA All Defensive Team member, Olympian, right? Multiple times, right? He's now putting together the type of resume that stands out. But I think the last and final step is he has to be the best player on his team. He has to be that guy. Let's be clear. Even though Ben Wallace was not the primary scorer, he was the best player on that team. I know you had Chauncey. I know you had Rip. I know you had Rasheed Wallace and Tayshaun Prince, and you had that crew with Lindsey Hunter and all them. It was a great crew. But let's be clear. Ben Wallace, being a defensive player of the year, anchored that team, who had historic defensive numbers, which is why they got to the NBA Finals in the first place. He was the best player on that team. And Bam Adebayo needs to step into that space. We need to be able to see him as the best player on a playoff team. And hopefully, we get to see a playoff run where Bam Adebayo becomes that number one option, becomes that even number two option, because many times he's not even that. Many times he's a tertiary guy playing off of everyone else's playmaking. Now he needs to step into that arena where he says, no, I'm the guy. I'm going to give you 20 plus points a game in the playoffs consistently on great efficiency. And then when we need buckets the most, get us a bucket. Attack and create a shot off the bounce in the post from the perimeter, right? Wherever he has to do it, get it done and make a run in the playoffs. And I think this year, that's exactly what we're going to see from the Miami Heat. But as always, I want to know what you all think. Wishing Bam Adebayo a happy birthday. Really being optimistic about this upcoming season. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications, and definitely drop this video in your group chats with your partners and respond in the comment section. You know I'm going to get at you there. Peace.